Hello and welcome to another episode of the Straight Shot Post podcast. That's a bit of a mouthful, but we're back with another week here, giving you guys stories about what it's like to build a media empire from the ground up. As always, this is Frank Arroyo, CEO of Straight Shot Posts, and my lovely co-host and executive assistant, Grace Santos. And we're here to tell you about another week at the company. So, what do you got for us this week, Grace?
I think the biggest thing, this is for me, the biggest thing this week was you need information. That was the takeaway. You said that a lot this week, whether it was trying to sell our extra Comic Con tickets, whether it was trying to get a quote from a client or trying to get a timeline, anything. I'm always a person who's like, I don't know what they can do. I don't know how much money I should ask from them or, what timeline they're thinking of. And so I don't know what to suggest. And you're always like, it's a game of gathering as much information as you can so you can figure out where to move, how to move forward. Because without information, you don't know how you're going to navigate. And I thought that was valuable.
Yeah, I don't even remember half the things you spoke about, which is funny because to me it's just like a hard rule. But I do think there's this big sort of people get stuck in I don't know. And usually the answer is, well, like, then find out. And I think there is this weird stigma around like asking for stuff. I think it's actually more that like they're afraid to ask the client for information. I'm not exactly sure why.
Mm,
Maybe because, or their boss, because they think their boss will get annoyed or the client will get angry. But once you have the mentality like that, you're the shit and you're here to solve some problems, then I don't care. I don't know if you noticed, one of our clients this week stopped taking video calls with us. And I was like, okay, fine. If you want to lower the level of communication in detail, that's on you. When mistakes happen, you can blame us, but we tried.
yeah. I mean, that kind of also goes internally too about people
Yes.
asking for sick days or not asking for sick days or being too scared.
I don't know what that was about, but yes, I guess I'll
I
say
mean,
this
it's
to any
happened
employees.
like
Um,
multiple times,
Yes, we had someone who didn't show up. So I guess I'll say this. This could be another helpful tip. I was talking with a colleague recently about punctuality at the office place and how you never know if somebody's working remote, and when people were in the office, they could kind of slip in wherever. And I think inadvertently, I ended up killing two birds with one stone. So our company's fully remote, and culture was sort of the top priority that I had in mind when developing sort of our weekly consistent meetings. And I realized that when we were in the pandemic, I would also not know when anyone came and went, and I felt like nobody knew what each other was doing. Nobody really knew each other's names and things like that. So I started a 10 a.m. start of the workday good morning meeting, and literally the whole company gets on and just says good morning to each other. And then it also gives them an opportunity to ask me any questions that they might need so that we can get going on our projects for the day. I did not do it to make sure that people showed up on time. I did it so that people could say good morning to each other and bullshit a little in the morning the way that I used to when Game of Thrones was on or whatever, and I was getting my coffee or water because I don't drink coffee at like the and a banana, and like I bullshit. So that's why. That's also why strategically I come on a little late, just because I
Really?
completely killed the fun. Yeah, like I built my
That life
routine
hack?
around that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll usually get in at like 10:03, 10:04, and I like when I come in and people are talking about normal stuff because
Yeah.
I know what happened when I come in. Everybody's like, the boss is here,
Yeah.
I tend to start my workday after my workout, like ready to go. I'm ready to kill things. I come right into the thing and I'm just ready to go. And so, I know that, and I know I have that energy when I come in because obviously I did butcher one of these meetings recently, and I guess I'll share that story. Maybe I'm tangenting here, but basically, we'll get back to information, but this is a good one too. It's like I was coming ready, you know what I'm saying? Like I was so ready for the day, but I was in a bit of a mood. And I get into the meeting and they're all talking around, joking around about some Twitch scandal or something like that. And then I completely was like the fun police and just destroy, and I don't know why I did it, and just destroyed the whole vibe, and everybody just got mad quiet. I don't even remember what I said. I was just like, why are you judging this and that? I don't even know. It was like not even related to anything. I had no idea what the
No.
conversation was. I just like power tripped or some shit for a minute and killed the vibe. And then afterwards realized I'm an idiot. And then the next morning I actually apologized to the whole group, which I think they all forgot about it by that point. But
Yeah, they were like, "What? Oh,
yeah,
haha."
but I thought it was right so that they like, I don't want to take that away.
Wait,
That's,
so wait, you told me to remind you about what happened this morning. Or like you said you have a
oh no,
story
that's my
about what
morning
happened this
routine.
morning.
I think we'll get to that too, but I want to just highlight here like
Oh, okay.
a couple of things and try to sum up some things from this week, which is number one, I realize how valuable these good morning meetings are outside of culture too, because today somebody didn't show up and it's 10:03, 10:04, 10:05. we're a small company. It's very clear so and so's not here, and now we can have people check in on them. And we always have the mentality of making sure they're okay. My first step is
Yeah.
always like, I assume this person who normally shows up is having an issue, and I want to be able to help resolve that issue. I don't come at it going, oh, they're being lazy or whatever. Even if they
Mm.
overslept, I also have this mentality. It's like, dude, if you overslept, you already feel like it's not like you wake up late for work and are like, if you do and you don't give a you might want to change your workplace or environment because like you should care about showing up on time, and doing a good job, right?
Mhm.
So I assume that, and I assume they wouldn't just not show up. And then they did about 10 or 15 minutes late after we had two people calling them and emailing them and texting them, which is another thing I recommend, is that persistence is always the answer. And essentially, they were not feeling well and they weren't sure if they were going to come in. And then I had to have a conversation talking about, like, hey, communication is key. And here our core values are effort, honesty, empathy, and simplicity. And I feel like it was a good example to show her, like, you just needed to let us know what was going on. Even if you're not feeling well at 8 o'clock the night before, giving us a heads up is a huge deal at a company this small.
Mhm.
But I understand that they might feel weird about taking a day off,
I
which
know I do. I never know if I'm sick enough to take a day.
I would love. Can you talk more about that from your perspective? Because from my perspective, I do everything I can to not get sick because I know I'm the most important part of the company
Mhm.
and I have that responsibility on me.
Mhm.
But if I was sick, I also have the mentality that what needs to happen is that I recover, and the fastest way to recover is not to try to force it. So I'm looking for minimizing total downtime, which is not easy because I want to be stay working, but like I have trained myself to be like, nope, this is the most efficient way. Stay in bed, don't do come in the next day. So
Well,
I'm
I feel
curious
like
what your mentality is.
my mentality is if I start to get a sore throat and I know that I'm gonna get sick, I'm like, if I took a day off now, would it I've never or like would it help me recover or will I just be sick tomorrow anyway? So I might as well just work today if I'm gonna be sick anyway tomorrow and then I can just take tomorrow off. That's my mentality.
That's different than what I'm saying because you're still saying like when you're sick, you will take off, right? This morning,
Well, no, no, no. Well,
it
no,
was
but
a little
then,
bit
but then,
different though.
no, no, no. But then, like, I'll have that mentality for the first day of the sickness, and then I think it'll carry through, being like, okay, I'm bad now, and I'm like, okay, I'm bad now, but I might be worse tomorrow. So let me wait till tomorrow to take the day off then when it's really bad, and it just keeps happening, and then I end up not taking a day off. That's what I would do before COVID. I don't get sick that often, so when I do, I just don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, let's see, you've been here long enough. Do you remember when I got that stomach flu?
Oh god, on April Fools? And I thought it was April Fool's joke? Yeah.
I don't even know that. That was this April,
Yeah,
bro. That was
it
a
was April
nightmare.
1st. Oh
That was
god,
brutal.
yeah.
And I did take a client call that day.
Oh,
Actually, and I
okay, no,
did
I think
and
if it's anything stomach
I also
related.
did interviews during COVID when I had COVID, right? So
Oh, yeah,
I may not be the best, but I know that I can do that 10, 30 minutes here and there
yeah.
and listen. I listened to a lot of calls. So I was still like looped in, but I was knocked out on the couch, just meditating and breathing, knowing that it would pass. And it was about a 24-hour bug.
I think stomach things is different. That is in a different category in my brain, and that's like, I will not risk leaving my house for that or any work thing.
That was brutal. That
Oh
was a
god,
brutal one, and I'm glad it's past me. But
yeah.
just on that note, maybe from the employer side, it was just for anyone who is planning on having employees here, you must encourage your employees to not be afraid. I think so many of those kind of lack of communication issues come from fear. And what I tried to do is make her more afraid of letting other people down,
Mhm.
and stuff like that rather than just like not showing up. Which again, I think we talked about the Gen Z thing. They'd just rather not show up than have the difficult conversation. So
We haven't
I
talked about that.
really, are you sure that wasn't we haven't brought that up? But anyways, well, that is an interesting thing I learned about Gen Z is that they're very conflict avoidant. And so once I learned that, then I realized I guess I have to bring the conflict to them in a way, in a non-scary way, and encourage them to be able to have those conversations with me and try to nip that in the bud because it's a perfect example. She'd just rather not show up and pretend like, I don't know, no one would notice or something than like actually tell me she wasn't feeling well and stuff. And I do feel bad because she said like, no, I feel like I'm up for working. And I had to like 3 times be like, are you sure? Take the day if you need it. Do you feel up to working today? Like, and I don't know if that does anything to help her genuinely think about and make the right decision, but I know it's my place for me to have to at least try. That definitely was a definitely a big takeaway from this week, and something I'm working on all the time with the younger crowd here. But
It's funny
yeah.
that Gen Z is so conflict avoidant, and yet Gen Z is known to be very much like stand up for yourself, and like that the
Yeah, but I
culture
think
in the
that's like
workplace
in
is so
a that's like
contradictory.
online, right? And like in a
Maybe.
march with a lot of other people, right?
Well, I meant at like at work because I've heard of my millennial friends who work with Gen Z being like in the office, and the Gen Z is like, I'm not, or
Yeah,
maybe they
no,
don't
no,
say it
I'm not saying that, but then do they talk to their boss or do they get on their
right.
job?
They
Yeah.
don't say it to their faces. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, of
That makes
course.
sense.
So what the example that was thrown out there was that like you have somebody at work who feels like they deserve a promotion, okay? And then instead of talking to their boss about getting the promotion, they just get another job.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, that makes sense because as you guys know, if you listen to the podcast, we had two people resign recently. And when one of them when one of them had let me know, I said, what do you mean? We already figured this out. Like, and she was like, I remember her saying, I thought I was doing you a favor. And it was exactly that. Like she did not want to set up the call with me, have the conversation about what her job looked like in the next 6 months or anything, and instead just looked for another job, which, there's nothing wrong with that. But how do you expect to build up that kind of loyalty and the kind of like, culture if you keep hop skipping around? What's going to happen is the recession's coming, and maybe it's here now. And all of a sudden, we have to really be picky about who we value at our companies because there's going to be
Mhm.
layoffs. And who do you think is going to get laid off? Is it the person who's shown us they're willing to grind with us and fight through adversity? Or is it the kid who's had 4 jobs in 2 years?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's funny because I've had a bunch of like job things popping up in my feed. I don't know. I think my iPhone's listening, but like on Instagram, and it'll be like advice for people who are, like just giving jumping jobs. And I've also heard this before in like psychology classes where it's like the people who make more money are the people who go to
Yes.
different jobs.
Yes, of
And
course.
so there's that thing too. So then it's like, how do you grapple with doing that versus doing loyalty?
First of all, that is a statistical fact, but you don't, again, it's
Yeah.
like, is it causative or correlative? At the end of the day, how many of those people spoke to their jobs and tried to get the same money before they decided to leave the job?
Right.
How many years were they at their
Mm,
job? How many skills did they develop? Okay. And again, it just matters what kind of companies you're trying to build, what kind of demand is out there. When the economy is booming, then it's not going to matter necessarily as much. Everybody's hiring, companies are expanding. But it's when hard times come, like everything else, like now, where arguably also it's more important to have a job that you can rely on.
mhm.
Okay. But nobody's planning for that. And your generation has never faced that kind of adversity. I
No.
was only coming into the job market in 2008. So I
Mm,
didn't really experience it either.
mm.
All I know is my mom was freaking out and they were losing money in the stock market and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But like it didn't really affect me or my business that I didn't have one. And now I'm thinking about it a lot and I'm realizing, yeah, as a business owner wanting to build a great company with not
Oh,
a large team, I want soldiers. I want people that believe in it, that can see themselves here for a long time. But what company wouldn't prefer that?
yeah.
So instead of building a mentality that you have to jump ship, I would always build a mentality of like, how do I get what I need in my lifestyle and be useful? What does a company want in me? Especially if you like the company. Because what drives me nuts is people will move even though they're happy. And then they go to a new,
Mhm.
like, if you're not happy with your job and you've been there and you've given it an earnest shot, not 3 months
Right.
because it was hard, you've been there for 1 year, 2 years, you've tried, you've really put effort in, and it's the people or the environment or the culture and it's not a fit, then yeah, go find a place that is a good fit. But if you like it and then you're moving for the sake of moving, and there's no clear objective, as in, I get the responsibilities and the job title that I want that I can't get here because there's a cap or because the person that's doing that particular job clearly isn't going anywhere. Like someday, Grace, someone's going to want to be you. And if you're not going anywhere, they don't have a place to go, right?
Mhm.
And that makes sense for them to learn, train, and if they decide that they can't get really what they want for their life here, then great. We helped build them up so they can succeed and be grace for somebody else.
Mm. Oh,
Because
that's so weird to think about. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's how it is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think that's fun. Like all of those things make sense, but I think you just have to have a good reason and not one that's necessarily just purely like money related, because the money,
Yeah.
there's more value than just pure money. Honestly, if it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just money, I would just go to the company and be like, I like it here. I'm happy here. If you value my work, where can you go? And honestly, if in my opinion, you just have a marker, you're like, for how much I like it and how easy the job is, because I'm good at it already or whatever. If they can't match and they come in 10% or 20% lower, you just have a line and say, I can't, and then just say, no, unfortunately, the money is so good that it's worth the change and whatever. Okay.
Mm.
I'll give you a good example of how this worked from two friends of mine, close friends, that this mentality really worked out in their advantage. So this is the opposite of the hop, skip, and jump. One of my best friends is a chemical engineer or environmental engineer. He was at the company Arcadis, which is a huge firm, engineering company, hundreds of years old type of big company type of thing. Anyways, every year he would say something like, it's not, I'm going to move on. He'd have some reason. And then he'd take, recruiters hit him up all the time. And he ended up every single time that happened, though, maybe this is once every 2 years, he'd go back to him and say, look, bro, I just got this offer. And they would say, like, fine. And they would just match or come close. And he's like, okay, I like it here. Great. This must have happened for like 8 years. Okay. But I think it's a good mentality because he was still able to get the money that he needed. He was still able to invest where he wanted. He was still able to build the family that he needed. He's a homeowner. That company gave him a lot. And in
Mm.
return, he whooped that for that company. And before jumping ship, he would have conversations with them. And so I think he gets the best of both worlds.
Mm.
That company let him do 6 months basically freelance in Baton Rouge
Oh, wow.
just to get, and made sure that he would come back to them. And he did. That's kind of what I mean. If you're highly valued at a company, like it makes sense for the
Mhm.
company to do that for you, but you got to be good enough to do
Mhm.
that. So that's why I think that's more the mentality. If you're so good, they're going to have to work with you. So you flash forward and a national grid job opens up, and it's actually more in line as a project manager, more in something new and innovative, something that enticed him from a creative standpoint. And in addition, just so happens that one of his best friends from college that we go way back with is going to be working with him in the same department. They have lunch together now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was more money.
Yeah.
And it was closer to home. That is a damn good reason to leave.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
he's happy as he could be. He is a happy guy. He's got two amazing children. Can't wait to see him at the Jet game on Sunday. And like that to me, I was like, wow, maybe that's how you do. Maybe you don't have to go crazy with all the recruiting and everything. You just have honest conversations. You're very good at your job. And I think that's a great path. The second person I'll mention is my co-host on the other podcast is Melissa. I can't say too many details. She'll kill me if I say too many details. So let me see how the best way to put this. But basically, she's been at BBDO for many years. And the story goes that when she started, she was supposed to start a job the next day when the BBDO offer came in. Very gutsy of her to say no to that job, but she knew BBDO was where she wanted to be. So she did burn a bridge, which obviously she knows was not good, but that's the risk she took, and she committed, and she's been now an account director over at BBDO. Well, she recently thought it might be time for a change. But she's been there like 6, 7 years, bro, dominating for them. And that's
Mhm.
fine. You're like, yeah, who knows what reasons you have. But she's not the kind of person that would do that lightly. So she started, look, she gets another job offer and does all of this before speaking to BBDO, which I don't mind. I think that's actually the right way, is like, just don't accept anything. But like, you need to know what your value is on the market before you go and talk to your company. Because if you're being empathetic towards the company, of course, they're going to try to retain value. So they're going to want to keep your value for the lowest possible price, right? That's what the company's supposed to do. So
Mhm.
you're just empathetic there, and great. I know that. So I need to make sure I know what my value is. And my company's unlikely to be the one to do that. So let me just find it and then just come to my company with that. I think she made maybe a mistake somewhere in there and may have accidentally or not said yes to something. And so it became very awkward for a second time because she was not ready for when she told BBDO, and BBDO's like, boom, we'll match. We'll give you a new job title. We'll put you on the brand you've been dying to work on. And now what's she going to do? So basically what I'm trying to tell you guys is, like, before you do that, like, yeah, you can have those conversations, and this actually ties into the getting the information part. Okay. Before you make the decision, get all the information so you can make the best possible decision you can. That's
Mhm.
the way I look at it. And don't be afraid to ask for that. Say, hey, job, just so you know, I'm getting offers from companies for this amount of money for the same level of work. Can we have a conversation about it? Because I like this place and I want to help you build towards the future. I believe in the culture, but I can't deny what is facts, that in the market, I am worth more than what you are currently giving me. So let's have a conversation about it. Is there something I don't know? Or is it just that I haven't asked? Okay. And so again,
That's good. That's
to
good.
wrap it up about this information thing, it's a universal statement that I see in general. And I'm like, just you, why wouldn't you wanna, like, if you have the option to know the whole, like, if you're gonna do Texas Hold'em, if you could magically know all 5 cards, wouldn't you want to know all 5 before you started making bets? And for whatever reason, people think that that can't happen, but like, they're just not asking. So we ask tons of questions, and if clients get annoyed, they get annoyed, but we only care about doing good at our job. And you're
Hmm.
right. I think there was like 3 or 4 different occasions where the answer was, you're like, actually, we talk about this all the time too. Don't, guys, please do not make problems out of things that aren't problems yet. That's why you need more information. And I know in Grace's case, for example, she was like, so, but if I do this, then this might happen. And what if that happens? Then what do you want to do? And I just kept saying, Grace, just when that happens is when I'll decide about it. But like, why am I wasting time on a problem that's not a real problem yet?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, but I understand this human draw for like ultimate clarity and certainty in life. And once you embrace that the whole thing is chaos, then you start to realize I only really actually need to know this far ahead. Okay. And this is me also learning. This is how I'm becoming more risk prone. So the opposite of risk averse, right? I'm
Right.
learning to spend more of my money because I used to have that mentality of like, well, good. Now, like, we have money that's saved. And I'm like, yeah, but if you're not spending it, you're not growing, right?
Hmm.
And so this mentality of like that's why the 5-year plan is kind of fun because you realize it's kind of bullshit anyways, but at least the first year seems very doable. And so it's like, okay, that's probably all we have to know. And then once we achieve that first year, even if it takes 2 or 3, we're there. And now we can just look the next step ahead. As long as everything is roughly pointing in the same direction, I'm like becoming way more comfortable with the sort of chaos and uncertainty of what it means to run a small business. Because as you know, Grace, if you think about what the company was like 6 months ago or a year ago, it's like it's not smart to try to really perfectly plan everything outside of maybe 3 or 4 months at our current place. Eventually that'll change, but like that's kind of what I mean. And so we need more information. And we're starting a YouTube channel aside from this one, building a different kind of brand just to learn. And what I've told my producer on that is, hey, we need to see if this thing has any legs. So I'm going to give it 3 months. No one's going to look. You're going to post every day or twice a day. 3 months is a guess of maybe us being able to project some things out. It's like 100 videos roughly, right? Go up. If nobody's interested, when we think we've done a great job with the videos, I'm not talking about like if we know we posted 100 pieces of doo-doo, I'm not talking about that. I'm like, no. Things we know, like we know this is decent. We've put a lot of effort in. We know it's in a market people are interested in. And maybe we're just not hitting, then yeah, maybe. But like you need enough information to decide if I'm going to invest more or pull the plug. And so it's kind of
Hmm.
knowing that and figuring out what you need in order to make the best possible choice. And I think this does permeate through a lot of things. And I think people are afraid to get the information. I think that's the part that people get stuck at.
Yeah. There's a phrase in Japanese that my mom always said to me. It's called ittamongachi, but it's like the person who says it wins. And I mean, yeah, it's I guess asking you shall receive kind of, but
Yeah.
I mean, I always grew up and I didn't ever ask anything. And she's like, you gotta ask, girl. Like, you can't just expect people to hand things to you. So
A hundred
yeah,
percent. I think
very
it is
good.
about, I mean, so this is the one thing that we know is like action is the thing that will, you have to do things,
Yeah.
right? You have to do things. Action is the driver of any outcome. And as you know, at the company, I think fear is what inhibits speed and action. So trying to unlock you guys to just do stuff without being afraid of the negative impact of it, obviously within reason, I think is actually like a huge unlock. And so when I tell people like your job does not hinge on videos going viral. Nope. Your job hinges on applying effort and making sure that you're constantly updating and innovating and trying to serve your audience. That's what your job hinges on. And if I don't see effort being applied, then yeah, you don't belong here. But if the video goes viral or not, and you just tried your ass off and we applied that over time, like I'm fine. And that's what I mean. Not many companies are built like that.
Mm.
I just know that if you do it that way, you get better anyways. And if you have the right mentorship, like I obviously believe that I'm very good at story and very good at building systems and very good at learning people and reading those things. So I just kind of try to let them know, like, you have a safety net because it's my call at the end of the day. And I trust in my own abilities with the amount of experience and whatever accolades I've had in my career that you don't need that. You don't need the results and the accolades yet because you have a safety net. You need to develop the skills to make decisions, how to make the right decisions, which we have a framework for at the company, right? You have to be able to embrace the process and get obsessive and comfortable with the amount of repetitions you do at the company. Those are the things that matter more in the long run. And I know because we've been having
Hmm.
our one-on-ones this week that it's been a sort of a big talking point as people have shifted departments and need new goals and objectives. And I think that's been another reoccurring thing is like basically you have to know you're going to make mistakes. You have to know it's going to get destroyed and you have to be comfortable with that creatively.
Hmm.
And that's really difficult for people who succeeded tremendously in school. And I just keep reminding them like the standard is different. If you want, I will praise you in relation to where you are amongst your peers so that you feel confident for where you're at. But the standard that you're being held to is the one is where I know you're going to be. So that's why it ends up feeling like a highly critical environment because it's all about improvement. It's all about reaching that potential, which you're very far from. But like if I were to compare you to other, like you're at my company, so obviously you're better than most of the people around you. Otherwise, I wouldn't even bother investing in you. Like my standards are that high. So,
I've been thinking about this,
oh,
and well, about kind of getting better and practicing. And I realized, well, it kind of ties into also the Gen Z, like jumping. Like my instinct is constantly to jump to another thing when I'm getting uncomfortable and then I can't do it. And that is the advice that I keep getting from people that are, don't have all the information that I do, my position. But I've been thinking to my past and how I've done it before. And before, I never had a choice when I wanted to jump ship and I was forced to do things. And I remember be piano, it'd be dancing, it'd be Japanese school. I did all those things for like more than 10 years. And when I first started, I absolutely hated it. And I hated the reps of like my parents making me wake up at 7 a.m. to play piano, like on a cold December day, and my fingers were frozen at like 7 a.m. And I go to the sink and just like warm them up with warm water because you can't play piano with cold hands. And just hating it. And then, not getting to go to birthday parties on Saturdays because I had to go to Japanese school. And I literally, like Friday nights, I'd be crying and doing my Japanese homework. And I think about those things. And I mean, if it was up to me, I would have quit. And everyone's like, why don't you just quit? All the first graders. But I stuck with it for 10 years and I ended up with amazing skills that it's funny because when I went to NYU for drama, they made us take dancing and music classes. And then because I had those 10 years of practice, everyone, we were doing beginner dance classes. So it was like easy for me. And everyone's like, wow, you're just so talented. I'm like, nah, I did it for years. And then when I think back on Japanese school wanting to quit, but now I'm so thankful that I stuck through it and that I can read and write and speak in Japanese. And I have like my core group of friends from that. And so when I think back on that, I'm like, okay, no, there is something to be said about perseverance and sticking to it. And so that's what always keeps me going. Anytime, I guess, anytime I'm doing something that feels like I should just run away. Yeah. That was my own insight.
I think it's super valuable. And I'm really glad that you shared that because I think there's a negative stigma about like if people heard that story, like, oh, your parents made you do something you didn't want to do, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the day, people need to like not be so black and white about it. They need to recognize like
Hmm.
their parents have to make a decision about what they're trying to instill and build in their daughter. And
I'm so thankful for everything that they
yeah,
forced
because
onto me.
they knew you didn't like it, and then they still push you to do it. But I'm sure there were other things where I know, like with me, there were some things that my parents pushed me to do and helped me get through hard parts, and then there were other times that they could tell I was like, no.
That's true. Yeah, I remember I was forced into Science Academy in high school where I used to wake up at 4 a.m. Jesus. We had like zero period before the day started at 7 a.m. So icky. And I was like, I'm not about this. I'm not going to be a scientist. And so they were like, okay. You can quit.
Yeah, I remember the day my father was like almost a professional baseball player. It was a huge part of his life, and I remember the day that I quit.
Mm,
And it's like obviously it's memorable because I know I was terrified to disappoint him, but I have really incredible parents who I think they were doing what they felt was best, and I think they just fucking nailed it. But basically, the day that I quit, I threw like a no hitter actually. I had the best game of baseball I ever played in my life, and I'll never forget exactly what made me quit. It was a miserable season. I never wanted to pitch. I was scared and ashamed because everybody was bigger and stronger than me, and my teammates were, if I'm being honest, they were. And I remember I went up and I thought to myself, well, and I'm young, so I don't even know, well, who cares what the reason was. I was like, look, if I can't throw the 70, 80 mile an hour fastball, I'm going to try something different. And so I was throwing what was called knuckleballs, which basically is like, it's a very specific kind of pitch and it's meant to be unpredictable. And I was just nobody was hitting this thing and I was just crushing it. And I remember that the last inning was coming up. And when I went to the dugout, my teammate said, the only reason that nobody's hitting your balls is because you're throwing them too slow. And I was like, you know what? You guys suck. And I just told my coach, I don't want to, I'm not pitching the last inning. And so he put in our best pitcher and he lost us the game. And I'm like, so it's like great. And then I remember getting to the car and they gave me the game ball because like I had pitched a hell of a game. And then when we got home, I was like holding the ball and I was like, Dad, I'm done, bro. I can't with this.
wow.
Yeah. And he was like, he looked at
I
me
mean,
and there was like a long beat where like, I know that my dad wanted to be like, no, son, like, he's like, are you sure? Like you just pitched a hell of a game. And I just remember and I don't know, obviously I had to determine, I was like, I'm done. It's not fun. I don't feel good doing it. And
mm,
I'd rather go play in my band. I was a drummer. I was like, dude,
right.
I would rather take all that time and drum more and practice more and do that. And he let me do that. So I have a lot of respect for that decision on his part. But I also think that, it's different when there's no passion for anything and you're trying to help your kid find it. Also, as a parent, it's got to be hard to
Mm,
figure out like, is this the right
mm-hmm.
thing?
Yeah.
Because now I think it's more difficult because what if your kid is passionate about video games? Like that's very difficult to figure out if it's a true passion or if it's the video games are fun, right? And every kid probably wants to do that now. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that the job of managing how to, help your kid persevere and push through is just, I guess it's just different. But I'm just different like it's been throughout all of history, but in general, I feel like it
What
is
an
an interesting
interesting
topic.
topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that it's a lot like owning a company. I hire younger people, and while I certainly hope I'm not a father figure, I'm definitely a mentor figure. That I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it is about instilling the same things. Now, I have the beauty of only wanting to hire people that are very passionate about this. And then it's a matter of just literally, for the most part, just helping you guys push through all the uncomfortable parts of it. That's it. So, yeah, y'all are a bunch of whiny babies, but I'll drag y'all past the finish line. Don't worry. And then, on the other side, it's a lot easier. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. And I feel like this was kind of an interesting week in that regard. By the way, the communication and helping people to not be afraid to have that stuff, that's literally everybody that comes in the door here. That's across the board. It is a very common thing. And so I'm very used now to encouraging and having those conversations about when you're sick, this is how you have to communicate it with me and all that. It's not the first time I've had that conversation, so I know how to handle these things, but hopefully it'll be some good insight for you guys if you guys are trying to build the kind of company we are. We want to be small, extremely tight. I avoid using the sort of family, we're a family here kind of vibe because, like, no, it's workplace, it's professional. You have close colleagues. I hope that my employees make friends with each other and stuff. That's cool. But really, we're here to get it done. And we're learning that how to get it done at a high level. The only way to really do that is to be able to communicate effectively and without fear. And so, therefore, I push a lot of that style of communication in the culture, and it works. So there's a sort of a nice human element, like we care about people. So we want to encourage your voices to come through. And there's the hard work element. You're a chess piece on my board, right? We talk about the duality all the time. Everybody here lives and breathes it. I value you as a person. And also as a chess piece, business owners, it's better. If you have the ability to cultivate that kind of culture, I personally think it's been extremely valuable for us. And we're only, really 2 years into the game. How about that
Done.
for a
Yeah.
quickie? Right. Let's wrap this bad boy up. Life
Oh no.
hack of the week.
Oh, 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 oh.
Look at this. She's already afraid of the questions, fam.
Oh God, I haven't thought of one today.
What was the life hack of the week, Grace?
Well, we had two.
Pick
Which one
one.
do we want to share?
Be decisive.
Okay. So you mentioned that you have checklists in your
Mm-hmm.
mind when you see someone and you go through,
Oh yeah, yeah.
like,
All
what
right,
is that
this is
about? I don't even know how to describe it.
listen. The context here is specifically, I'm an INTJ and I'm
Wait,
oblivious.
is it to compliment?
In that example was
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Basically, I recognize that I'm not normal and that I'm oblivious to things that people care about and that I do not properly show that I care, right? That's I'm saying
Yes.
like that's the problem.
Yes.
That was rhetorical. I don't even know why I said that. That is my problem. Okay. Pure INTJ, only care about the data. My head is 20 years in the future. I don't know to shit about anything unless it's related to that thing. I'm hyper focused, right? So what I have done is I wanted to build a skill and it required a lot of repetition is that every time somebody at my company or a significant other, so this is like friends, family, and colleagues that I want to remember me, I don't really care about any of this stuff. That's the trick. That's the secret. But it doesn't matter because even if you know the trick, you can't not feel it. That's the funny part about it. So the trick is I have a checklist that I will run through anytime I see somebody, and I basically just look at their hair. I look at their clothing. I look at their hands or wrists to see if there's like a ring or a new watch or a piece of jewelry. Okay, sneakers. That's a big one, and I just
Hmm.
run through a checklist. I go hair, jewelry, clothing, sneakers to see if any one of those things have changed, and then I will just say something about it, basically.
But like in my case, you just said, "Do you have," like you've said it before. You're like, "Do you have makeup?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Yeah." And
but
then you're like,
that's different.
"Okay." Oh,
I see you every day. That wasn't this. That just reminded me of this.
oh, because you didn't say a compliment or any or the opposite of compliment. So I was like,
Yeah, but it's
"Why did you
still
say?
the same.
What's
It's
the
still the
point?"
same thing of me registering did something change because what I notice is that if somebody changed something about themselves, usually that's something they wanted pointed out. Okay.
Oh.
Right. So that's the theory. If you change your haircut, you're hoping somebody says, "Hey, you changed your haircut. It looks good," right?
Mm, mhm. Mhm.
Okay, or you change your style, or you bought new kicks, or you're wearing a nice piece of jewelry. Like that's what my guess is. And so I just say it, and 9 times out of 10, it gets a very nice reaction out of people. So what's funny is like, did I notice it because I really care? Blah, 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 blah. No, I'm going to be honest. But I still do it because I know it matters to other people. And I think that does count for something,
Yeah.
and it makes those people feel good and it makes them like me more, and that matters, and it helps me force myself to show that I notice things and that I care, even though it's not really my thing. So this kind of goes back to the like, this
Yeah.
is me, this is how I have basically I have systems in place to help me do things that I don't like or care about that I know other people like and care about, so that I they can relate to me in some way.
Yeah. I think that's doing the work. That's nice.
I guess so, but like it's a life hack for other super introverts who get that kind of flack. Like if you've ever had your girlfriend say, "You never fucking say nice things," or "You never notice this." Well, that's what happened to me. It happened enough times that I just said, "Dale, just make a mental checklist. Anytime you see them and they walk through the door, and it has to be like you're looking for a routine. So usually it's like at the beginning, like when they pop on a Zoom call, run through the checklist real quick, especially with clients. And so with clients, I also make a list. He talks about kids a lot. So anytime I get on the call with one of my great clients that we've had for 3 years, I'm always like, "How's the kids? It's so and so in school." I just have a note next to me, like mention Jets, right? Like if I ever meet Gary, I'm gonna
Yeah.
say, "Brah, just so you know, I was at this Jet game." I already have the specific one that I would call out if I had to, and then boom, it builds rapport. And it's like, does it really matter? Do I really care? Nah, but it's like a good way to start. And like obviously there's more to me than just that anyways, but what this is specifically for people who do not have a lot of the normal things in common like sports. So I always tell people like pick a sports team, pick a movie or TV show that's popular so that you can generically have conversations. Because do you know how many times people have talked to me about The Good Place?
Oh,
Did I
I'm
hate?
sure.
I am not a fan of what's her name.
Kristen Bell?
Absolutely not. Okay. I just like as a performer, her shtick drives me nuts. It's super annoying to me. That's it. I don't. That's it. It's just a thing. Personal preference. Don't flame me. It's personal. It's an emotional thing. But the amount of people that are like, "Have you seen The Good Place? You would love The Good Place. You'd love The Good Place." That now I just have some automated response like, "Oh my god, yes, that twist at the end of season one," and they're all like, "See, I don't
Mm.
even know the twist, but I know there is one." Right? And they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Oh, yes," and then I move on. So it's like that's what I mean where it's like having these sort of checklists and a little bit of like just being somewhat relatable. And yeah, people say like, "Oh, it's bullshit." The thing is it's like if I came up and said, "Hey, I'm Dale. Do you want to talk about quantum physics, business, or anime?" The pool is slim, but once they get to know me, then maybe they have interest in some of these things. So like why
It works. It's
not
kind of like
open,
how
yeah, just like open, yeah.
telling yourself, like looking in the mirror and being like, yeah, you kill it, even if it feels stupid. It's like it works
Yes,
at
exactly.
some
What works
subconscious level.
works.
So
And
yeah.
I know I'm aware that I can't get by in this world without learning how to communicate with people and having friends, right? Or at least acquaintances that like and respect me. And in order to start conversations, it's rare that I could just like go as deep or jump into something crazy. I've learned through the hard lessons that you need to be able to have some things and that can give you that kind of conversation or to just notice these things that people want to be noticed about them, and lo and behold it works. Even if, and I'll just say a quick story, I had an ex-girlfriend who hated the way that I texted because it was so blunt and dry, and she just thought I was being mean. And I remember telling her, "Look, how about this, after every text I'm just going to send you a kissy emoji." And she was just like, "What but it's bullshit though." And I was like, "How about we just try it? I'm gonna do it anyways." After a week she was like, "I'm not gonna lie, it kind of works." That's kind of all I actually needed.
Okay, wait, actually, this is not that out there because isn't it a thing in relationships? The girls are like, I don't want the guy just to wash the dishes. I want him to want to wash the
Right.
dishes. That's like a common thing. And like
Of course.
guys can just wash the
So,
dishes and just say that, like, I don't know.
but that's and so this is where I'm saying I don't do what I do and like announce it because then
Right.
most
Of
people are
course.
going to be whatever. But I guess you can learn that even though I did announce it, it still works because we're all
Yeah.
human and it's just like emotional stuff. So
Mhm.
I take the
Mhm.
emotion out. I come up with some conclusion that's like, that's so low lift for me to just punch an emoji in after every text. And if that does the trick, that does the trick. Because it's not that I don't care, it's that I don't know how to communicate it right.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so, in the same vein, though, you can just do it the other way, where it's like if you're getting this problem and you realize that it's an issue of conflict, not necessarily by it being true. Like, if I didn't care, if you don't care about her at all, that's a different thing. You should really look into that. But if like
Yeah.
if you do and you just like don't like texting or whatever, there's probably a quick and easy fix that works for them that's low lift for you and you're done. And whatever. You can be like weird like me and tell them about it or you don't even have to as long as it gets the job done. The actual thing that's relevant is that you applied effort in an area that they wanted to see effort in and you found a solution even if you don't give a shit about it. I don't,
Wait,
you know?
this reminds me that you did something this week that I really love, and you
Oh,
said do you remember? You're like,
no.
"Put
I
your
don't remember
salt hat
yesterday.
on," and then you just, like, ranted,
What did
and
I say?
that you said, "Put your salt hat on,"
Oh,
and you're like, "Take this with a grain of salt. I'm gonna put it on," and then you were just, like, ranted, and, like, that made the rant so much easier to process.
oh, that's good to
'Cause when
know.
it's about me, like, well, it wasn't about me, but, like, kinda, and so, yeah, I like that.
Interesting. So there is a theory. There is like science behind it. It's, I believe, again, Chris Voss's book on negotiating. Cannot reference it enough. But basically, when you say the fear out loud, when you label things, it takes away its power. So
Mhm, mhm.
at this point, knowing, for those of you who don't remember, Grace was crying in the podcast last week. So, or 2 weeks ago now.
2 weeks ago, yeah, not last week, I was not crying last week.
But basically it's like that's what I mean, where it's like, okay, so all I have to do is add a sentence and maybe it solves X problem. Not and I label and the technique was to label it. So if I warn you about it, your expectations change. And then hopefully I just
Mhm.
come in, it's the opposite. Hopefully I come in under what you expect. And then
Exactly,
it's
yeah.
right.
I thought it was gonna be something way worse. I was like, "Oh." But if it had come out of nowhere, I would have taken it so seriously, and I would have been like, "Damn, like, I really messed up." But no.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Yeah. So a lot
So
of
you
this
could
I
just
think
say
is just
salt
that.
hat.
Yeah. And then I'll look for the official win. Again, that was a first time try. I like literally forgot. I'm glad you mentioned it because I would not have added it to my like toolkit. Now I will. It's
Please
just
do.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or just umbrella.
getting in
Like,
front. Yeah, and just telling people like take a beat, take a deep breath because I'm about to fucking crush everybody's soul. And then yeah, it's probably not as bad that way.
mm-hmm.
It's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Question of the day. Who went first last time?
You did
All right,
last
hit
time.
me.
Okay. Oh my God. Why is this so hard?
Why don't I just go first?
What's the question?
What are you most excited for about Comic-Con this week?
Oh,
Which, for quick context, guys,
literally
is Comic-Con here in New York. We have our pro badges. We want to get into publishing in the future, so we're taking the opportunity to really go and develop relationships and have a great time because Comic-Con's amazing. Anyways, so what's your favorite? What are you
the
looking forward to
wrong.
the most?
This is the wrong answer, but
There are no wrong answers, Grace.
I'm
Jesus.
excited for whatever burger that we're gonna have.
I
That we're
knew
gonna
you were
crush.
gonna say that.
We've hyped it up so much. At this point, yeah. Last year it was like we had gone to Comic Con for 3 days straight, and at the end we went to this burlesque show held by one of the publishers. It was really
Oh, it
fun,
was
and
amazing. There was, just to
we
be clear, it was, I just want to be nerdy about that for a second. Like it was
oh,
comic
comic
specific
theme.
burlesque. And I'll never forget, for those of you who are fans of Brian K. Vaughan Saga, which I'm a huge fan of, they had the Prince, the character of the Prince come out. He's like on a TV. Do you remember the metallic? It was all metal and it had a
Yeah,
TV
yeah.
head. Yeah, that one I like lost my mind. I was like, that is so amazing. It was such a one of the great comics of our current generation, but like still like as far like no one that knows big movies or TVs knows Saga really, but it was so good. So yeah, it was like that kind of nerdy level. Great, it was a lot of fun.
And then we were so tired and we ordered burgers. And I can't usually finish a burger, but that one, I was so tired from walking all day. I destroyed it and it was so good. It really hit the
Yeah,
spot. So honestly, I think I'm excited for like whatever is not planned because we have a huge itinerary built. But last year, the stuff that was unplanned turned out to be really fun, like going to the Twins pub. And we met our lawyer, who's now
oh
our
yeah,
lawyer.
that's true.
um, so yeah, the unexpected things are always fun to me.
Okay, that's good. A
Yeah.
little serendipity, huh? And by the way, we also got a cookie in a skillet after that burger.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
good. So we don't know if what we're gonna do, but we decided it'll be a ritual since Grace and I both typically eat on the healthy side and kind of live more of that kind of lifestyle. But we know that we're gonna ball out and we're gonna get ourselves one hell of a burger at Comic-Con someday. So yeah, that's a good
Oh
one,
yeah.
Grace. I like that.
Who do you think is gonna win the League of Legends World Championship 2022?
I only laugh because that was like so proper, but that's another thing that's coming up is your boy got tickets. I'm going 4 days to Worlds here in New York. I'm going to be seeing 3 days of groups in one of the, I think it's the quarterfinals, maybe it's the semifinals, whatever, one of the top 8 best of 5s. And I was at MSG in 2016 when Rox Tiger played SKT at the time, and it's considered widely by many people to be the best of 5 esports series ever played, at least in League of Legends. It literally had everything. Had crazy unique picks, surprises. They subbed out their jungler who was been starting the whole tournament to bring in the old Bengi, the right hand of Faker, who like hadn't played at all that tournament, to come in, and then they picked him a champion that he's never played professionally. He dominates the game and takes it to 5, and oh, it was too good. It was really, really exceptional. And ever since that day, I've been like, esports has been one of the best sporting events I've ever been to, and I'm really excited to go back. So who do I think is going to take the whole thing? I mean, if I was, it's tough to just not go with the front runners, which right now there's 2 big Chinese team, either Top or TES, that people think are really capable of taking the trophy. The number 1 seed from Korea is also Gen G. They're also a super team and are one of the front runners. And usually if people are picking, they're going to pick between one of those 3. So maybe a better question would be like, is there a dark horse that I think could come out and possibly make a run? Because the thing is, it's so currently heavily skewed towards probably one of those teams. Like
Oh,
yeah. However, the reigning MSI champions are there, and the last year's world champions are there too. Also 2 Chinese teams. So if I'm looking for a dark horse team, I don't even know. I mean, I guess I would say SKT more because I want to see Faker lift the trophy again after all these years with a bunch of Zoomers. But they got a lot. They got to get their shit together, and they got to clean up their draft. So I think that if I were to pick of a team that could win, what I think would be
Uh-huh.
cool, I would say
Yeah, yeah.
SKT, and then I'll also just add like, I obviously hope that NA and I'll take EU make a good run. And of all of the Western teams, I don't really know, man. I wish I could say EG could make a decent run. Honestly, Cloud9, I'll just say like I think Cloud9 could make a run. They've made it out of a group before with EDG and SKT, and I don't think Fnatic is that scary of a team to enter that group. And I really hope that they're of the Western teams. I believe that they can make a good run. I think EG is kind of in trouble with that G2 and Damwon, and I think it's Top that's in that group, TES. So that's kind of rough. And then, we'll see kind of how it goes from there. 100 Thieves has actually a decent group, but RNG just slotted in. Although I don't think they look that strong actually in play-in. So really excited to see how it pans out. And I'll go with SKT, and I'll just say on the Western team is Cloud9, even though I'm not a Cloud9 fan. So there you have it.
Okay. We'll see what happens.
Yes, we shall. Well, that about wraps it up for another week over here at Straight Shot Posts. Obviously, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to us. We hope you guys get value out of this. And if you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and we'll try to address them in upcoming episodes. Thanks so much. Work hard, be nice. And as always, keep changing. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one. Peace.